I'm so excited to be here today with Tiffani Bova. Tiffany is a global growth and innovation evangelist at Salesforce now over almost 7.5 years. Wow, that's amazing, Tiffany. That's so great. Tiffany is also a two-time Wall Street Journal bestselling author. Growth IQ came out in 2018. And now the new Experience Mindset, which is out this year, which I am a huge fan of. She also hosts a podcast. I just checked. It's still going. It's 6 years running, 6+ years. And formerly, Tiffany, I knew Tiffany as a distinguished analyst, VP, research fellow at Gartner. And not everyone may know this, but you're one of the Thinkers 50 global management thinkers. So welcome back. So good to see you again.
Yes, nice to see you too, Lori. And almost soon we will be in person together. Super
That's right. We're going to be at Dreamforce. So did everybody see that? I don't know. I was looking.
Yep, that looks great. Thank you.
Well, that's fantastic. It's like we were just chatting about it ahead of time. It was a little different than people expected for you to put out because it got into the experience of employees, and yet it's all it's all connected, right? It's all tied in. So we'll dive into that. But what I wanted to start off with was your definition. You said an experienced mindset is about fully maximizing the leverage points between a strong employee experience and a customer experience to create a virtuous cycle of momentum that leads to significantly better results. That's amazing. And I think it's interesting that in this time post-COVID, where everybody made excuses for good reason. We made excuses for poor service and delays and lack of people. And it's gotten to the point where some companies haven't bounced back from that. They're not giving the customer experience that we desire. And I'm sure and I know it's connected to the employee experience. So tell us a little bit about that.
It was an interesting journey for me. As you mentioned, I had another book called Growth IQ that came out in 2018. And that was really a culmination of my practicing experience as an individual contributing sales rep and then moving up the ranks to sales leadership. Along the way, I picked up marketing. Along the way, I picked up customer service and customer success. So I really had all customer facing roles in small companies and startups all the way to Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 250 company, actually. I ran a division, was my last people leadership role in carrying a quota, running marketing and running service. And then I spent a decade at Gartner, as you mentioned, Lori, and I was advising both, again, startups and Fortune 500 companies and global 2,500 companies on how to improve sales performance and go-to-market models and leveraging partners to sell with and through. And along that sort of journey in 2008, I was part of the team that made the prediction that the chief marketing officer would spend more on technology than the chief information officer. Now, mind you, this was 2008. And when we made that prediction, the MarTech stack looked very different than it does today. I think Scott Brinker tracked some 9,500 or 10,000 unique applications in the marketing technology stack. But back when I started in the cloud business, I was actually a Loqua's beta client and I was Constant Contact's beta client. And back then there was like 6 marketing technology products, and most definitely they weren't as a service. And so by 2008, when we made that statement, everybody went, absolutely not. Or are you talking about search engine optimization and digital marketing? And I was like, we're not actually. And they were literally buying servers and storage and networking gear. They were hiring design thinking people, UI designers, change management. They were getting all the integration and they were spending money on tech. Now, it wasn't about the technology. It was really about this shifting from being product-led to being customer-led. It was really a shift from the products and services being the reason a customer came back and came back again and came back more frequently and bought more things, to this experience layer that we believed good enough products with fantastic experiences could win in the market. And that opened my eyes to the power of customer experience, right? And how that would have impact, analog or digital, on the way a brand would engage with a customer. And I believe that customers would remember that experience longer than the price they paid. Fast forward to that first book, it was that culmination of my practicing experience and my advising experience here are the 10 ways companies could grow. And the number one path was customer experience. I started there because now I had been knee deep in the power of that experience as a reason why customers would choose one brand over another. Fast forward, after touting it and talking about Growth IQ, it became a Wall Street Journal bestseller, it was translated in 10 languages, it was doing really well. I didn't give employees enough focus in the book
Mm.
because they are the keepers of all the brand promises that someone makes. And it really came to light for me when I was standing on stage in Canada speaking at an event. And I said, I didn't think it was a coincidence. Salesforce is a great place to work globally. It's one of the most innovative companies in the world, and it's the fastest growing enterprise software company. Was it a coincidence, or does happy employee drive greater innovation? And does greater innovation drive more customers? And does happier employees get happier customers? And where customers are happy, they stay longer in a recurring revenue business. Could I prove this sort of ripple effect flywheel of one and the other having some relationship? And
Yeah.
so it took me down this 2-year journey. And the output of that is the new book, The Experience Mindset. But in many ways, that very long answer to a very short question is it's almost a mea culpa to the fact that it's the 11th path to Growth IQ because I didn't give employees enough sort of coverage and focus in the first book as was really needed, especially when it came to growth. So here's the second book.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I think it ties it. I think it was perfect that it happened that way. I really do, because you're really giving it its due now. And particularly in this time where I feel like there's going to be a customer renaissance, because for so long, for a 2-year period at least, we said it's okay if we have bad service, and we're lucky to even get served because of the situation. And now we're in a new stage or a new phase, and some companies have figured it out and moved forward, and other companies are still having problems because they're more process focused and not people focused and things like that. And I wonder if you notice that still, if that's something that is in part of your experience.
Two things I'd say there, and you just accidentally proved my point of the book, which is you said, and I'm paraphrasing, obviously, and I know you didn't mean this narrowly, but I'm saying it this way on purpose, right? It's a way to make a point.
Yeah.
But you were like, that customers had to become okay with this kind of okay service, but you didn't say anything about the employee. Is it okay that I'm now working from home and I don't have high speed internet, or I don't have a quiet room by which I can work from? I'm on my kitchen table and my kids are home and my spouse or my partner is home, or I'm taking care of somebody at the house and I have to work, and you left it out. But it's
Yeah.
just for story purposes, I'm calling this out,
Yes.
right? Yeah, okay. So I think the pandemic cracked open the lack of focus and investments that we were making on employee. And
Yeah.
the result of that was the great resignation, which, by the way, I don't like that term. I use
Right.
great reflection
I
because
like
I think
that.
people just didn't resign to, because to me, resign is, oh, it's just the way it is. I'm just going to suck it up and keep working.
Right.
The great reflection is, hold on a second. I spend a third of my life here. I have no joy. I don't like what I'm doing. I
Right.
spend 90,000 hours of my life drudging through the same repetitive task. I'm not doing it anymore. And my manager never listens to me and they just don't care. I'm out.
Yeah.
And so quiet quitting is also the result of that. It's a paycheck. And I understand many people need that paycheck, that they can't be picky, that they can't find another role, or they don't have the skills, or they don't have the degree, or they don't have the capabilities to do what they really want to do right now. So they need to keep this job. I understand. So quiet quitting and the great reflection were the outcome of the lack of investments. So now the employer employee relationship is forever changed, right? It's now, hold on, I need more. I need you to listen. It's mental health and well being. I need the tools. I want flexible working arrangements. I want you to invest in my career. I
Yeah.
want training. I want career development. And just a huge asterisk in everything I'm saying. I am not a people expert. I am not a culture expert. So everything that goes into HR, like comp and equity and inclusion, are extremely important, not what I talked about in the book. The
Yeah.
book is very focused on the moment that matters, when a customer and an employee touch in some way, either offline, online, the product that you design, the how-to inside of the product, the sales rep, the customer service rep, the marketing material, the UI on your website, the app you design. That's what I'm talking about. At that moment when employee is touching customer in some way, whether that is digital or analog, or whether it's a bot, you get the point, right? So everything else that goes into HR, highly important, very valuable, not in this book. So just my sort of public service announcement caveat.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you think about that, right, then you can say, okay, let's just pick a sales rep. Let's just pick a sales rep. Why is sales getting harder? You could argue the sales cycle's getting longer, there's more competition, there's more buyers in the buying process, the journey has gotten complicated, whatever you might say. But if you peel back that onion, if the sales rep is only spending 28% of their time selling, and unfortunately that percentage has gone down,
Right.
it should not be a surprise sales has gotten harder. And if they're only spending 28% selling, you shouldn't be surprised that a little more than half will miss quota day one of the week, quarter, year, whatever. If you're a sales manager listening to this and you're about to go into your one-on-one for the quarter review, day one of your quarter, you should be like, we're going to miss quota, unless your quota is too low or you've done a really good job managing that sort of forecast quota, then good on you. I want to hear how you did it.
Yeah.
But if you only are spending 28% of your time selling and 50% of your sellers are going to miss quota, and then we want to understand why that's happening, then you start to go, hold on, where are sales managers spending their time? Are they coaching and mentoring, or are they training them on administrative tasks? Now, it's not lost on me. I work at Salesforce. I get it. I get it. A lot of the time is spent in the CRM system. But if managers were automating, if they were journey mapping how you have to go through a sales process and they weren't adding all these additional steps that was sucking up time instead of being with customers, and you could use voice and use AI and use now GPT and all of the technology that's coming at us to take that time off the plate of the seller and allow them to focus on that critical thinking and value-based work, wouldn't you get better quota attainment? Wouldn't they spend more time selling? But instead, we're hyper focused on the sales process.
Right.
Customers do not care what stage they are in the sales process. Like, they don't wake up and go, today's a great day, I'm going from stage 2 to stage 3 in the sales process. They don't say that. They don't say that.
Right.
And sales reps don't wake up and say, I can't wait to data enter. Also not true. So if we as leaders, and we think about that as a combination of the employee experience for a sales rep and the customer experience for a customer. And if the journey for the customer is seamless, frictionless, easy, intuitive, and then the process for the sales rep is complicated and kludgy, and it is not automated, and it's all those things, we would never, ever in a million years ask our customer to have 5 tabs open to place an order with us. We ask our sales reps to do that. So that's an example of this connection point between, we've spent billions, we, the royal we, billions on reducing effort for customer in order to improve the experience. And the unintended consequence of that has been we've increased the effort for employee while reducing their experience.
Yeah. And if we factor in the lack of training for a lot of frontline managers, because we've traditionally just promoted top reps.
Yep.
Don't know why. But
look, I was one of them. I will tell you, in reflection, and I was just saying this to someone this morning, I was a high-performing sales rep, so I got promoted. And every time I got promoted, I would hit the Peter principle of the sort of the level of my incompetence pretty quickly, because nobody was capturing me and go, how do you run a team meeting? How do you run a forecast meeting? How do you train people? How do you get people who are missing quota to do this? Like, how do you inspire and motivate people to use the tool? How do you solve like all the things that we have to do as sales managers?
yeah.
First time sales manager, you actually start managing like you were managed.
Right.
And you manage thinking everyone sells like you sell. And that just sets everyone up for failure. So great point, Lori, great point.
Yeah. And probably aren't coaching regularly and may not know how to coach very well. So you have all these different things coming at them. I originally was talking about a B2C experience, like more of a retail play, but it totally ties into what you're saying. We just don't always see that as much as we see and feel our retail experience. But I do feel like B2C has always been ahead of B2B in my mind. I don't know if that's true. It seems like B2C's led in some ways. But with B2B, you're right. People are just saying, I'm not going to put up with this anymore as an employee. I didn't like it before and I don't like it now. And if it's
And
not going to change, why?
yeah, and I'll tell you, I'll answer that two ways. One, the thing you said about coaching and mentoring. This is a stat from Bain, but the majority of a sales manager's time is actually spent on the administrative and tactical training, meaning like the one-on-ones are about like, if it's not entered in Salesforce, it doesn't count. Like you have to do this before you do this. This is how we do RFP responses. This is how to get approval on quotes. Tell me about this deal. And the sales rep, for all intent and purposes, is going, so then why am I spending my time in Salesforce? And I'm just using Salesforce as an example, right?
Yes.
And all of it's entered in Salesforce, but you're not even spending the time to look at it before our call. And the answers to most of your questions are actually in Salesforce. So could you look at Salesforce before our one-on-one? So we spend a lot of time on administrative. The second part of that very same study, and this one always gets a chuckle when I say it in a keynote in front of sales reps, but it's 47% or 42% of, I think it was in the, I think it might be 47% of sales reps would not spend $1 for 1 hour of their manager's time.
Really?
So as a sales manager, like, oh my God, like your team wouldn't spend $1 for an hour of your time. Like you want it to be valuable, because if you're not, but if they feel like it was a waste of time, like whatever CRM tool you're using, if they're not looking at it and they're coaching you on the things, they can get most of those answers out of the CRM if you as a sales rep are doing it appropriately.
Yeah.
And they're not using it and then really coaching and mentoring you on very specific tactics or particular accounts. It's of no value and you feel like it's a waste of your time. Now, the whole point of a CRM at the end of the day is, unfortunately, too many sales reps view it as an input engine, right? Like, I have to do this. If it's not in it, I don't get paid. Or I have to do this because it's the only
Right.
way I can do a quote. Instead of looking at it as an output to be the partner that you need, the sales rep that
Yeah.
will win in the future, no doubt about it in my mind, will be the ones that use technology better than their competition. Full stop.
Yeah.
Because they're spending more time selling. It's more value-based, right? It's anticipating and predicting what customers may want next, instead of trying to keep everything in your brain or in an Excel spreadsheet or nowhere, because there are still many sales reps that don't log in to
We
their
have clients like that.
system. Yeah. And so then your clients will vote by going, I just spent an hour with Tiffani and really, she didn't tell me anything I didn't know. So the next time she calls, I'm just not going to accept the appointment. And that's our fault as,
Yeah.
as sellers.
You talk a lot about the Ritz-Carlton brand in the book, which I love, the idea of what they do and how they treat their customers and how employees are empowered.
Yeah, Horst Schultz, who was one of the founders of Ritz-Carlton and was the president, created the tagline that ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. And he believed hiring was the most critical piece of creating this luxury brand of a hotel, which at the time was very different. And it meant that you want to hire the right people, but then you have to make those investments in training them and preparing them for what may happen. And to use your word, Lori, which is the right one, empowering them at that moment that matters. A customer is in front of a housekeeper and something is broken. At that moment that matters, what are you empowering that housekeeper to do? Do they look at them and go, oh, sorry, it's not my department? Or when I'm done with this room, I'll call downstairs. That isn't the service that Ritz wants, right? They say, if you cannot solve that customer problem in 15 minutes, that you call for help. And when you call for help, everyone shows up, right? And so you do a broad call and the front desk manager might show up, your technical help might show up, right? Your facilities managers might show up, the manager might show up, like everyone shows up, whatever that may be. The other thing they give them is there's like a $2,500 purse that each employee gets to use, could give a customer a drink coupon or comp them on an upgrade because there was something that happened in the room, or give them a spa service because of a bad experience they had, no questions asked. And so that kind of enablement and empowerment was really training everyone, and not just once, but training them over and over again. And Hortz was really good at watching customer satisfaction scores and employee satisfaction scores. And if a Ritz hotel dipped below the level that they expected, he would show up physically, and he would show up until the scores turned around. And is it a people problem? Is it a training problem? Is it a management problem? And he would retrench in, ladies and gentlemen, serving ladies and gentlemen, let's get this right. So that kind of commitment, if you've ever stayed at a Ritz, the difference is not, it's the job to be done is I need a place to sleep when I'm not home. I could stay at a Motel 6, I could stay at a Courtyard Marriott, I could stay at a Ritz Carlton. The job to be done is exactly the same.
Yeah.
You are paying for that experience. Whatever you view that as an experience, right? There's a spa, the beds are better, the sheets are better, the service is better, whatever, however you view experience. But that is a big premium upcharge for that experience, because the job to be done is the same, right? Where you're sleep, you're just not home. I need a place to sleep. So the only way you could charge that value, and for those of you who are like, we're going to raise our prices, you have to justify it by, it can't just be more speeds and feeds or features. It really has to be experience based, because customers have told us, 88% of customers have told us that the experience they get from a company is as important as the products and services that they sell. And Ritz has nailed that. Four Seasons has nailed that. You don't have to spend a lot. You could argue Southwest Airlines has nailed that. And that's a more of a discount carrier. Doesn't mean bad service, just means better price, right? And so how do you, or Costco, you could say it's a better price, but it's a much better experience. So ultimately, it don't just view better experience with, oh man, it's going to be more expensive for us to deliver, or it's more expensive for us to sell. It may be, but that's where technology can really help.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So adapting to technology, the technological, and those who are creative, I think, because GPT is not going to take the place of creativity, right?
I saw
Creativity.
something this morning that GPT was getting dumber. I actually laughed out loud. Like, thought that was funny.
Saw that too. That's great. So
Yeah.
the lesson for sales is customer experience and employee experience and marketing and sales. It's all tied together, right? It's all part of the go-to-market. I don't know, they call it emotion in marketing, right? I don't think we can stand in a separate room anymore and just be sales. That's the way I feel.
Yeah, I don't know. I can tell you that when I was an individual quota bearing sales rep, I'd be like, marketing doesn't know what they're doing. They give us these leads and they're crappy leads. And I have to show this PowerPoint and I have to give this presentation and I have to like, and marketers saying, sales, why do we have them? We can do it without them. I think that conversation's been going on since before I even got into sales and marketing. And
Yeah.
we're still having it today. But what was missing from that was customer success or customer service. It's all three. It's three legs of the same stool of growth, because those are really the customer facing organization. And so I will say, if you're an individual quota bearing sales rep, you have one thing you can control. Unfortunately, only one thing. You don't get to control what your quota is. You don't get to control what your comp plan is. Most of the time, you don't get to control what accounts you can call on, what territory, what products you can sell. Like, you just don't have a lot of control. But the one thing you can control is how you show up. How you show up. So if you can show up with more value, if you can show up more prepared, if you can show up leveraging technology that gives you a competitive edge to your competition because you're using it appropriately and effectively, and you're teaming with those other groups in a more effective way, that's when you win. And so that's what you can control. You can't fix the whole company if you're listening to this and you go, oh my God, I so agree. And you're screaming at the podcast, right? I agree, but I can't control it because I'm not a manager or I'm not the head of sales or the chief revenue officer. But you can control how you show up. And if you do that and you do that well, it will translate into a better experience. If you do that and do that well and have a better experience for your customers, guess what happens? You will close more business. And then if you close more business, more word of mouth. And then you create your own virtuous cycle. It might not be happening everywhere in the organization, but it will happen for you.
Yeah. And that is how to get the attention of those around you who, even when everyone's so busy that they just can't see it. But you're right. The more that works for you and you build up and the customers are happy, it's amazing how that works. So I highly recommend the experience mindset. Tiffani Bova, great job again. Thank you so much for this book. I love it so much. I'm giving it to clients. It'll be a good fall gift. I love to give people books in the fall because it's that back to school mindset. Encourage people to do that. And you still have your podcast. You have amazing guests on your podcast. So I'd love to put in a word for that as well. And continued success. I look forward to seeing you at Dreamforce soon.
Absolutely. And Lori, thank you for always supporting me over the years. Unfortunately, as I get further and further away from my Gartner hat of sales transformation and go to market models, my love lies with sales. And so anytime I get an opportunity to get in front of that audience, I jump at the chance. So thank you for having me again.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you, Tiffani. Tiffani Bova, and check out all of her work. You won't be sorry. Thanks so much.